TV.
Watch it.
They have both coasts down. I mean, originally from East Coast, but they have a lot of West Coast influence in their music.
So then you go from like the early or like the late 70s, early 80s into Sunset Strip era. Bands like Van Halen.
Yes.
From Pasadena.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, sidebar.
Okay.
Are you...
I know where you're going with this.
Okay. Are you Van Hagar or are you David Lee Roth?
Okay, you answer first.
Because that's a debate.
I'm a David Lee.
Yeah?
Roth, yeah.
Okay.
He just did it for me in those spandex. You know what I'm saying? No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, no, like...
He was an acrobatic guy on stage.
His voice to me, like Sammy was okay and all, but David Lee Roth, he was a performer. And like, I think that's what that band needed. That's what they were looking for.
I'm going to go Roth on this one. And remember his videos? I mean, he was just like the face of the band, Dave TV, and he's just so...
Yeah, I think growing up on early MTV, I think that's why, like early MTV, my memories,
That's why MTV, I think, worked early on because you had big personalities and big bands and that sound.
And fun, just so fun to watch.
Right. I don't know.
Who do you choose?
I don't disagree about DLR.
Okay.
But I've always been more of a Van Hagar fan.
Okay, that's cool.
Tell me why can't this be love?
I think it's because he can't drive 55. I think that's probably why you're a fan of him. He kept the speed limits in mind.
I don't know. I just like a front man who could distill his own alcohol as well.
Yeah, that came later.
Why not?
What is it, like
Cabo
tequila? Yeah, or something like that. Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, he's not a bad guy either. I think what you said earlier was they both had their time and place.
Yeah.
Right. All right, we spent enough time on Van Halen. We can move on.
We'll do our own podcast on them.
Probably one of the heaviest bands to ever come out of California is Metallica. And I don't think a lot of people remember that they're from that San Francisco area.
I forgot, actually. Yeah. I didn't remember that.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, they formed in Los Angeles. And then, now don't forget Dave Mustaine of Megadeth.
Oh, yeah, I love Megadeth, too.
When he was in Metallica, because he actually got booted out.
Yeah.
I'm a Megadeth fan.
Like, what do you got to be doing to get booted out of Metallica?
I don't know. Maybe selling your stuff on Napster. No, I don't know. Like,
I think the answer is methamphetamine.
Like, Metallica early stuff is great.
Yeah. Like Kill 'Em All.
Coming from like an underground punk rock, do it yourself type vibe. I see a lot of things wrong with them now.
Yeah.
But their early stuff was great. And it was definitely influenced by punk rock, hardcore, that crossover thrash.
Let's talk about that. I was going to say thrash. Did you grow up listening to a lot of thrash music or the bands you played in? Were you all influenced by that?
Yeah, I can tell you all about some of the bands a little bit later here, like that were influenced by stuff like that. But like for me, when it comes to the two comparisons of Metallica and just talking about them or Megadeth, for me, it's going to be Megadeth.
Yeah.
Like that was just lyrically...
Again, there's that debate again, just like we have with David Lee Roth and Sammy Hagar. It's are you Dave Mustaine and Megadeth, or are you James and Lars and Metallica?
Yeah, like all the Metallica, definitely. It's
Master of Puppets.
It's killer, but
Justice for All.
Good.
They just got soft to me, in my opinion. They just got soft, and then they got a little too political.
And they've, in more recent years, like the last, 2 or 3 albums, they've tried to go back and recapture that magic from some of their earlier thrash years,
right.
And some of it's good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
but a lot of it's not great.
No, that's a lot of bands from Los Angeles. If you want to go back to like the punk rock stuff, is mostly what I'm familiar with. It started in like about mid 76, mid like 70s. A lot of it was fashion based. It was punk rock, but you had some bands like the Dickies, and you had like the Germs that came out around the late 70s, and those groups basically played punk rock. They took sounds that they heard, and it was very original. It was original, and it was from California. It wasn't an imitation of what they heard from England. They just took their own sounds of what moved them. And then from that period of like just the punk rock stage of Los Angeles, I'm kind of sticking in the Los Angeles area. You did have some bands that came down from like Northern California, like the Lude, and a few other bands that came down. They moved down further south to L.A., started playing there more. Then you got into the hardcore punk. And like hardcore punk rock bands, you had like bands like Circle Jerks, 7 Seconds, Fugazi came later. Yeah, they were
Bad Brains.
They were post-hardcore. Bad Brains was a DC band.
Okay.
Just sticking straight with like Southern California and like California bands like TSOL, True Sounds of Liberty. I'll have a story about that band later.
See, I've seen like T-Sol on shirts or hats. I've seen like some T-Saw memorabilia.
Yes.
Yeah,
I'd
True
never
Sounds of
known
Liberty.
what it stood for. I just thought maybe it was like an apparel company or something.
No, it's a well-known punk rock band. So like I met
Look at me
Jack.
getting educated over here.
See, look at this.
Well, no, that's
It's
what,
great
that's
that you
why-
brought him in.
I told you.
Life is about sharing and having the moments, you know. No, I met Jack from True Sounds of Liberty. I snuck into one of his shows, actually. I didn't have the money and snuck into one of his shows.
You met him because he was the one throwing you out because you didn't pay,
No,
right?
he was actually the one applauding me for getting in. He's like, hell yeah, you got through like the strong bouncers.
He
like,
liked that.
we were downtown San Diego. It was a couple of my friends. We went into the club. We snuck in. We changed clothing. I think like all my friends but one got kicked out. And they got caught.
Like this was all premeditated. You guys had a plan.
Heck yeah.
They
We
knew
wanted
what
to
they
get
were
in.
doing.
Yeah, this is the punk rock style of the era. But yeah, so like we got in that club, watched TSOL. I got a T-shirt thrown to me from the group, which was great. TSOL sounded like the old style, like the original like 1980s like, you know, punk rock sound that they had. I think at the time they had all original members too as the bassist. Yeah, it was all original. Drummer, guitarist, and then Jack on vocals. And met him, got his phone number because he wanted to set up a show with my band. And I was like, this is great.
Making
This
connections.
is a legend, you know, like True Sounds of Liberty. This guy was just super cool, laid back.
Yeah.
He's big into surfing, writing, and he, you know, he like we just had a lot of stuff in common to talk about. But I kept in touch with that guy for a few years. We didn't end up playing a show because the club didn't want a band that large to play there. They thought there'd be destruction. I thought this would be great. Never got to play with them, but I did surf with them, which was cool in La Jolla.
There you go.
So yeah, that was a lot of fun. Yeah, lots of different groups, but yeah, I just wanted to touch on a few. Like if anyone out there is interested in seeing some of the early LA, like punk rock to hardcore, really truly more hardcore. There's a few documentaries. One is it's called The Decline of Western Civilization.
I've seen it. Isn't it? It's amazing.
Yeah, you've seen that then, Jason?
1 and 2.
Yeah.
I think there's a third part too.
Yeah, there absolutely is. The first one's the one I mean, Fear, you got X, you have I'm trying to think of the other bands that were in there.
Black Flag, I think maybe.
Black Flag and Circle Jerks. And I think there was a few others.
And if you remember the Wayne's World movies that were out in the 90s, didn't the director of Wayne's World also do the Decline of Western Civilization documentaries?
You might be right. Yeah,
or at least
there
had
was a female that did.
Right.
Yeah. And
I can't remember her name.
She did
off the top of my
she
head,
directed a
but-
few things like Salt Lake City Punk, I think.
Yeah,
Couple.
SLC Punk.
Yeah. I mean, I got to meet quite a bit of people from just living in that area. You just bump into people.
Yeah.
So yeah, I bumped into Leaving from Fear. All he had to say to me was basically, "You got to drink my beer. You got to drink Fear beer."
Fear beer, baby.
Yeah,
Fear beer?
and they were a very destructive, crazy punk rock band.
Yeah.
Still are. I think they're still playing.
Dude, that's got to be kind of cool because you're growing up and you're playing with these groups and you're making these connections and you're getting to know these individuals and these artists at the time, like where they were still underground, but they were getting a following, right? Like they were building that fan
I would say they were.
base, and
I would say
starting to get
some were legendary,
right.
But then some, like you're saying, like it took a few decades, and then they hit that, like where everyone, like worldwide. Like I remember being in Europe, and there was a person that was wearing a shirt, and I knew that band, and then they were like, "Whoa!" Like really, like for them, it was just a band they'd listened to from Europe, and they had never been out to California. But I was like,
was it the band Europe they were listening to? Like
no, it wasn't the band Europe. No, it was actually Youth Brigade. Yeah, yeah, a band called Youth Brigade from Los Angeles, and
it's the Final Countdown.
Yeah, no, it wasn't Europe. I see the paradigm.
Dude, I love that we just deep dived on that because I mean,
gosh.
you got the history of that. Like I would say decade.
Mm-hmm.
I was on the later cusp, so like I personally got to experience like mid '90s to like early 2000s.
Right.
That's where I bumped into like people from the Adolescents.
Okay, I'm familiar with them.
Adolescents, Social Distortion.
Love Social D.
Love them.
Yeah, I met Mike on a few different occasions. Just bumped into him the first
Mike
time.
Ness.
Yeah, Mike Ness. First time I actually was standing at a merchandise table and we were looking at records. See this guy, kind of looks like Mike Ness, but I'm figuring everyone looks like Mike Ness at a Social D concert pretty much.
Right.
And so like I was talking with him and he was asking me, "Hey, what do you think of this album?" And oh man, isn't that cool? Like this, like look at the artwork on this. And we were just talking for a while. And then he left, and then my friend Sean came over, and he said, hey, what'd he say to you? And I was like, oh, we just talking about the albums. He's like, hey, that was Mike Ness. I was like, oh, my gosh. I was used to him from the documentary Another State of Mind, which
That's
is
a good one.
like an early...
Absolutely.
I mean, I can continue on.
I just think it's cool that you were standing at the merch table talking to Mike Ness, not realizing that's who you were speaking with.
Yeah.
And the irony of like his name is Mike Ness, and you're at the merch table, like
exactly.
The light bulb just went off in my head.
Yeah.
T-shirt opportunity.
I know where you're going.
Mike Ness, yes.
See,
like,
brilliant.
Put it on a T-shirt.
I love it.
Let's roll it out and make some money.
Let's do it.
Man, I'm glad that I didn't even have Social D on the list, but I'm glad that we spent some time talking about them.
Yeah, thank you for Thomas for being here with our very special guest for today. And that was just a little bit of punk. I mean, we haven't even deep dived into hip hop.
I know we're only
and
about
rock
33 minutes into the episode, and like we've barely scratched the surface with some of these California bands.
Right.
So like the band The Germs, they came out late 70s, broke up after Darby Crash, pretty much died, committed suicide, whatever you want to say happened. The Germs, so my personal story of that is I was playing in a band called Delta W. It was 2003, and we were up in East Hollywood playing a show at like a record store / like porno store. It had everything you can imagine.
So
like,
one side sold records.
Yeah,
the other
midget
was like
porn.
Must be 18 to enter.
Yeah.
Like,
definitely. That's California. But yeah, so
that's California?
That's California,
okay, so
Jason.
Back up a second.
Yeah.
We're taking as we often do, Adri,
music and porn.
We got to take a sidebar here.
Okay, yes.
We're gonna go in the weeds a little bit here for a minute.
Brother.
So you're telling me the California / Southern Cali thing, it's not uncommon to walk into a record store, half of it is selling music, and the back half is Jimmy's Wax Shack.
And Jimmy's back there.
Jimmy,
you want to meet him?
I'd prefer not to, especially in today's COVID environment.
Yeah. No, like when we played that show,
you're saying wash your hands for 20 seconds. Jimmy, you might need to go a little bit longer.
You put him in like a chamber and wash him down. Like,
that's right.
That show was significant looking back at that one because I played that show, and we basically were getting ready to play. A band came on that played, and it was actually Don Bowles, who's the drummer of The Germs. It was his band at the time. I don't know which band it was. It might have been some like reincarnated Grave 45 or something like that. But they were playing, and I had no idea that was him. And it was another moment where I ended up later. He came up to me and said, "Hey man, I really dig your style. Like those drum beats were hard. Like, 'cause he's a drummer, I'm a drummer. We're like just talking. I gave him one of our demos for free, and he gave me one of his demos. That's kind of how you did it. You just trade around." And he said, that was just, he's like, I just really enjoyed it. And we just started talking maybe 10, 15 minutes. And then he left. And then my buddy Johnny Five came over and said, "What do you have to say to you?"
Johnny Five from Short Circuit?
No.
Oh,
but that's the inspiration where it came from.
Or John Five from the Marilyn Manson band?
But yeah, like he basically, he told me he liked the band. And I was like, I was happy. I didn't know who he was. I was just happy that someone liked the band. That was my East Hollywood story.
Let's circle back around a little bit to like that Sunset Strip and bands that kind of had like, larger than life. They looked like movie stars. Yeah. They actually looked like girls, but you're talking about bands like Poison, Motley Crue, GNR.
Yes.
Yep, Skid Row. Don't forget them.
Oh, yeah.
How can we forget Sebastian Bach?
I love him.
Who's now like on the Gilmore Girls or something.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah.
He's Gil on that.
He's a great actor in that. He is. I will vouch for him.
Gil?
Yeah, I'm Gil.
Is the show named after him because it's Gilmore Girls?
No. Hep Alien. He's rocking on the guitar.
Awesome.
And singing.
I want to throw something in. There's a really cool show. It's called What's in Your Bag, right?
Yeah.
And it's just a quick little, sometimes it's, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever, and they pick a certain artist and they tell you what they're listening to right now or what they love listening to. And it's kind of like what we do with our podcast.
Yeah.
What's in the blender for you, what's in the blender for me. It's really cool. If you haven't seen it, check
Records.
it out.
Amoeba Records in L.A. They'll catch up with the artist as he's leaving or she's leaving the record store. They'll sit down with them if they have time, and they'll ask them and they'll interview them like, what'd you pick up? What influence?
What are you listening to?
Yeah, what are your influences? What'd you come out with? And they can tell them about it.
And they did one on Sebastian Bach.
What's in the bag?
Yeah, what's in your bag?
Yeah, what's in your bag?
So it's like a brown paper bag, and they have like maybe a bottle like Boone's Farm.
Well, they don't sell that there. No, this is just records and videos, Jason.
I mean, they could.
This wasn't.
It's not the Jimmy Wax
It's not
Shack
Mondo a
thing.
Go Go, which was a porn and music store. No.